Okay, good morning and welcome to the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, September 10th. I am the County Board Chair, Sean Flowerday. With me is Vice Chair Rick Vest and Commissioners Matt Schulte, Roma Amundsen, and Krista Yoakum. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, please begin.
A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located at the wall of the rear of the hearing room. All written materials to be discussed at today's open meeting can be viewed at the county's website at lancaster.ne.gov. Printing options are available upon request. Brings us to item 1, minutes. Approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held on September 3rd, 2024.
I move approval of the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Best.
Yes.
Amundsen.
Abstain?
Schulte.
Yes.
Yoakum.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 2 is the claims. 2A is approval of the claims processed through September 6, 2024. And I'll note we have an amendment for payroll.
I would move approval of item A with the inclusion of payroll disbursements through September 4th, 2024.
Second?
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Yoakum.
Yes.
Vest.
Yes.
Amundsen.
Yes.
Schulte.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. 2B, approval of the claims, including billings for goods and services beyond the 90-day time period provided in Nebraska Revised Statute 23-135. It is for Inticonnects LLC, dated September 9th, 2024, for a total of $1,985.72.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Schulte.
Yes.
Yoakum.
Yes.
Vest.
Yes.
Amundsen.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 3 is our special presentation, the 2023 Department of Corrections Employee of the Year Award to Gideon Gillespie. And I
This is
have,
where we get to embarrass you.
yep. Absolutely. Just make sure I have it. I have the letter to read into the record. Officer Gillespie was assigned the first shift PSW for Property Sanitation Warehouse during 2023. He went above and beyond in his duties and could always be counted on to complete his assigned tasks. Officer Gillespie is constantly looking for ways to improve and streamline the way things are done. He was proactive in making sure areas were cleaned and could only be counted on to quickly address the cells that were unsanitary and needed immediate attention. Officer Gillespie's hard work and willingness to set a good example for his coworkers. Officer Gillespie helped train 2 new PSW officers and is looked at by a leader by his fellow PSW officers. As a PSW, Officer Gillespie had a lot of interactions with inmates assigned to work. Officer Gillespie had a high standards for his workers and made sure they were aware of his expectations. He was able to develop several inmate workers into astounding workers and help build their confidence about work, both inside the facility as well as once they get released. Officer Gillespie handled the inmate worker program very much as if it was a real job for those workers and achieved a lot of success with this approach. Officer Gillespie's work ethic, attitude, and commitment to getting things done is something that everyone should strive to achieve, and he was nominated by Sergeant Chad Miller.
Thanks. I'll point out that there was actually 3 separate nominations for Officer Gillespie that we kind of combined into one letter, so we didn't have so many letters coming forward. So that helped us, make this decision. The fact that there were multiple folks involved in recommending him for this recognition. I appreciate the fact that it came across in the letter that he takes his job seriously, and he is very passionate about making improvements and making suggestions, and he's up in my office quite frequently, sometimes more than I like even. But he is up there quite often, and we have some good discussions, and we've implemented several of his ideas, and they're working very well. So, this is a large department. There are a lot of staff members there, and for 2023, Officer Gillespie stood out amongst that group and was selected for from his peers. So with that, congratulations and appreciate your hard work.
Officer Gillespie, for the County Commissioners, we would like to present this to you as Employee of the Year. And many of these letters that we get start with the employee has done something above and beyond. But it was clear as I read the letter, and I appreciate every county employee that does do work up above and beyond their scope. But I really, really appreciate it as I continued to read your letter. It was clear that your values impress upon your coworkers and among the people that are housed at the jail. And that's what really meant a lot to me. Congratulations. And I want to thank the people who nominated you as well, because that says a lot about the culture of the organization, and it sets up the culture of the organization to recognize good work. But congratulations.
Thank you.
Anything?
Would you like to say it?
I started back in 2013, and when I started at the jail, pretty much where our staff dining area is, that's where we have all the previous people that have won this award. And I always strive to try to be on that board. So the people that have nominated me, thank you. People I really want to thank, I try not to get emotional here. I definitely want to thank my mom and dad, because they're the ones that showed me what hard work and striving to become a good person is. Like my mom always said, if you can put your mind to it, you can do it. And I've carried that with me every day I do my job. I definitely love this job. I love this county, and I just treat it, it's like my home. I appreciate all my coworkers. I appreciate everybody who supports me. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you to my coworkers, to my family members, and everybody that took time to come off. And I appreciate what you guys do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say, this board can, and trust me, we will, say a bunch of nice things about you and embarrass you here in this room. And the real testament here is what your coworkers say about you,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's who's there with you every day. And the fact that multiple people nominated you like this, the fact that we received 3 different letters, I mean, that's such a testament to the really excellent work that you're doing and the real commitment that you clearly have to improve your workplace, to improve our county, to improve our community. And I just really want to thank you for the yeoman service that you've done for this community. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I really want to thank your parents for having raised such a fantastic man. And that was a very nice tribute that you gave them. Thank you.
I just really appreciate, man, when I go out to the jail and see the work you guys are doing. I mean, you guys are doing good, hard work, and it's so nice to see someone really stepping up and doing it well. Would you want to introduce any of your family that you've got with you?
To my right here, I have my sister, Danette. I have my dad, Gideon. I have my mom, Dina. I have my wife, Becca. My father-in-law, John. My mother-in-law, Cindy. So.
Tremendous. It speaks so well of everyone involved that we're here this morning. We're honored to be a part of this, and thank you for all you've done. I've been sitting here for 6 years now, and this is we get treated to some of these celebrations of accomplishment by hardworking people like yourself. This is one of the best ones I've ever sat through. So thank you, and thank everyone who was a part of this. We were just honored to play our small role in it.
Thank you.
Thank you for exhibiting such professionalism in a hard profession as well. And your dedication is really something to be commended.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Clerk?
This brings us to item 4, consent items. These are routine business items that are expected to be adopted without dissent. Any individual item may be removed for special discussion and consideration by commissioner or by any member of the public without prior notice. Unless there is an exception, these items would be approved as one single vote of the Board of Commissioners. These items are the approval of A, amendments to the following county contracts, C-23-0812 with the City of Lincoln to install cameras at branch libraries to monitor election drop boxes during their local, state, and federal elections conducted by the County Election Commission. C-20-0039 with Wayland Engineering Company Incorporated for public safety vehicle accessories and LED light bars and siren warning accessories. B, a right-of-way contract with Jack Nagel, Mill Road and North 27th Street in the amount of $392. And C, receive and place on file the following reports for August 2024 from Clerk of the District Court, Assessor Register of Deeds, Records and Information Management, the County Clerk, as well as the 2024 Annual Inventory of County Personal Property.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to have a conversation about A1, so I'd like to move to remove A1 from the consent items.
I don't think you have to move to do it. I think we're
Okay.
just saying, right? 'Cause,
Then we'll
yeah,
say
yeah,
it.
it's set aside. So, so then can we amend the original motion to pass the rest, with the exception of A1?
I'm agreeable to that.
Romy, you good with that?
Yep, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to pass the rest of the consent items with the exception of A1. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So I'd move approval of A1 from the consent items.
I will second.
I just would like to ask some questions. I know there may be some people in the public that want to comment on this as well. So I'd like to just ask a couple questions about A1. I guess my first question is, what changed that we are now putting cameras back on these boxes? I know this is something that putting election cameras on our drop boxes is good security and clearly something that should be done, and I absolutely intend to support this. I just am curious why we are doing this now a year later.
Todd Wilchin, the Lancaster County Election Commissioner. Commissioner Schulte, we had this conversation last week. The reason why we originally did not put drop boxes cameras in the original agreement was because in the initial discussions with the libraries, I was told that there were cameras on the exterior of the libraries, not in the areas where the drop boxes were located or by the front door, but around the parking areas so that we would have access. Then that would be what would be considered nearby. A lot's happened in the last year. Commissioners have asked to put cameras on the drop boxes. The public, there's been information out there that somehow the drop boxes are unsecure if they don't have cameras on them. Looking ahead at 2024, we are increasing security on all our election infrastructure. And so it's something that Douglas County, Sarpy County, the state is looking at also putting cameras on drop boxes just to make sure that nothing happens to them. So it serves as a deterrent. Unfortunately, there are concerns that the drop boxes might be targets in the upcoming election. And that was not something that I really thought was going to happen in 2024. I thought we would be past that, but I think where we're going, I think the drop boxes could be a target for voter suppression.
What's the timeline look like for getting these installed? Are they going to be installed for this fall's election?
Yes. Yeah, I'm waiting. I'll leave here once the amendment's adopted. It's a fairly simple installation. It will take a day to install the cameras. The infrastructure's there. It's just the camera just need to be installed and connected to the infrastructure.
Okay. I mean, like I said, clearly this is great security, a good additional thing. I just want to make sure that we had a chance to ask some of those questions. Because as I remember, I thought you said that there weren't cameras there and that the libraries were so into privacy that they weren't allowing cameras.
They don't have cameras on their entrances, and they don't have cameras on their depositories. So that is their policy. And so the drop boxes, 3 of them are right next to the book depositories in the drive-through. So that's initially, and if you read the contract, you will see how the cameras are situated in a place where we will not have a camera angle for the actual depositories for the books. The same thing for the door of the library at Gear. We will not have access to the front door of the library. We have, based on the use agreement, our access is limited to the drop boxes, and only the drop boxes.
Good. Well, like I said from the beginning, I mean, I clearly opposed adding more drop boxes across the city. I didn't feel like it was necessary. It felt like a security risk, and part of that was we didn't have cameras on them. So seeing that we're adding cameras to these is good, and like I said from the beginning, I intend to support it. So I appreciate your work, Todd.
Yep, absolutely. Any other questions, commissioners?
Todd, just remind us, I think I know, but how many people used the drop? But we had one in the previous one. How many voters left their
So
ballots?
in the city elections, half of the ballots that were mailed out were returned at the one drop box we had in front of the commission, and that was 19,000.
19,000.
19,000 in a short, our city elections are very abbreviated. They're not as long as a statewide. In 20 days, we had 19,000 ballots returned to the one drop box. If you've been out to the library, if you've been out to the election commission and the treasurer's office, you will see that parking lot is a problem. I mean, just yesterday, we had 2 semis and 2 trucks with trailers in that small parking area. We've had to put in a fire lane or a no parking lane in front of their drop box just because that parking lot is really becoming, at some points, unnavigable. And doing that with elections and with ballots, at the city elections, we had a line out to 46th Street, and that becomes a traffic hazard, as well as a hindrance to depositing the ballots.
Thank you.
You're talking about, so 19,000, that would have been in the 20.
In the general election for the city in 2023.
20.
Commissioner Yocum.
I did drive by the drop box in my neighborhood at Isley Library the other day, and it was very easy access, which I really appreciated, and it was clearly far enough away from the book drop that it could be isolated in the camera. I really appreciated that. I've also talked with several neighbors who plan to use that.
I lost track of one of the numbers you said there. That's what I was just, so 19,000 was at the main box, so how many were dropped off of the other boxes?
What the commissioner's best question was, for the city election, when we just had the one drop box, last year in May of 23, we had 19,000 ballots returned to one drop box. That is what prompted the additional drop boxes. Are you asking about the drop boxes
So I just,
for
how
the primary
will they use them
election?
maybe for the primary this year? That's where I was.
So of the 5 locations, 772 were returned to the Anderson Library. Isley, 173 ballots were returned. Gear had 3,023, and Walt had 2,240. And then the office, we still had a large percentage, 11,487 were returned to the office drop box. So,
Any further discussion on A1? Okay, hearing none. Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you.
That brings us to the public hearings.
Commissioners, item 5, public hearings. The first one is a series of county health department amendments regarding a variety of issues. Mr. Chair, if I could ask, do we want to have all of these together or one at a time?
I think together, right? I mean,
One through
can I just see a quick show of hands on who's planning on speaking on the county health department hearings? Yeah, let's just do them together.
Absolutely. Reading them in for the record. Item 1 is Amendment Article 1, Section 6 of the Lancaster County Air Pollution Control Program Regulations and Standards. 2 is the on-site wastewater treatment systems. 3 is the procedures for the inspection of on-site on-site water supply systems and on-site wastewater treatment systems prior to the sale, transfer, or conveyance of the property. Item 4 is the regulations on the operation of body art and piercing establishments. And item 5 is open burning permits.
Good morning. My name is Brock Hanish. I'm the Environmental Public Health Division. Oh, sorry.
Excuse me. Yep. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
All right. Good morning. My name is Brock Hanish. I'm the Environmental Public Health Division Manager at Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department. Before you, we have these the proposed fee increases for these 5. Primarily, they're going to be proposed. The increases will cover the operational costs, and they're generally 3% increases for the next 2 fiscal years. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Are there any questions for staff?
Well, this just seems like a really good method of raising those rates so that we can cover the cost of doing that, instead of one large raising all the time at once.
And I appreciate the health department's sort of ongoing quality control efforts
Absolutely.
to continue updating these and to keep reviewing the regulations to make sure that they're not, outdated or antiquated or just not applicable anymore. So, okay, I think you're good.
All right. Thank you so much.
Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on items 5A 1 through 5? This is the county health department amendments. Anyone looking to speak on any of the county health department amendments? Okay, seeing no members of the public wishing to speak, we will go ahead and close the public hearing on the county health department amendments 5A 1 through 5, and we can move on to the public hearing for 5B.
Item 5B is the public hearing on the adoption of the Lancaster County zoning and subdivision fee schedule.
Open the public hearing on 5B.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please go ahead.
David Carey, Director of the Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. Thank you for a little bit of your time this morning, Commissioners. Here just to briefly go over the proposal to update our application fees. The proposal is to increase our fees 3% each of the next 2 fiscal years. I will note initially that the City Council for the City of Lincoln has already approved these fee increases on the city side. So we do have 2 fee schedules, one for the city applications and one for the county applications. This proposal is based on the Midwest Region's Consumer Price Index for inflation. That is a more standardized and regular way of identifying how costs are going up, and it's pretty accurate to what our increases are for the planning department. So that is what these are proposed to be.
Haven't we learned by now we should be looking at state and local expenditures?
Yes, I learned that during this the recent discussion on the state budget
I think
items. So.
SLICE is a much better indicator than CPI. Keep going.
Regardless, we are right now using the CPI for this purpose.
CPI is actually lower, so I'm glad.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
actually, I think it's more appropriate.
I would also just note that the amount that we receive overall for the planning department ends up accounting for about 10% of the direct costs of our operations. So unlike some departments, we don't collect enough fees to really pay for our operations, but it does help offset some of the costs. The costs for both the city and the county, when we receive these fees for those respective applications, do go into the county general fund as well as the city general fund. So those fees are realized as far as the budget process is concerned that way. I will note that we are proposing one new fee for the county, and that is the appeal of final action at the Planning Commission. At the briefing we had a few weeks ago about this, we did discuss this a little bit. That is proposed to be a $150 fee. The real intent of that is to make sure that anyone that is appealing an action from the Planning Commission, and again, the vast majority of those do not because they're considered less controversial, but that does happen sometimes, to make sure that the party that is appealing it is truly aggrieved. So that is the proposal that is new. And one other more minor point is that we are removing the postponement fee that has been on the county and the city's schedule for years. We have never used a postponement fee, so we decided it should not be sitting there on the schedule. So that is another specific change. So with that, I certainly will answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff on the fee schedule?
I think that those are thoughtful and well-intended changes.
I mean, the reality is either the applicants pay the fees or the property taxpayers subsidize those making applications. And so it seems like an appropriate step to continue to ask those applying to pay a portion of the costs.
Okay. Anything else for staff?
Thank you.
Okay, are there any members of the public wishing to speak on the adoption of the Lancaster County zoning and subdivision fee schedule? Anyone who wishes to speak on the planning department adoption of the Lancaster County zoning and subdivision fee schedule? Okay, seeing no members of the public wishing to speak on the updated fee schedule, we will go ahead and close the public hearing for 5B. And can we take 5 minutes before we jump into 5C? My contact is killing me and I've got to fix it.
Yes.
If I'm going to sit here and...
5 minutes.
Thanks. I'll be right back.
I'm gonna refill my water.
Apologize. Open the public hearing now on 5C. Mr. Clerk?
The public hearing on 5C, the appeal on the resolution PC-01920, special permit 24024 for a heliport on approximately 3.27 acres, and the provision of section 13.012 of the Lancaster County zoning resolution on property located at 801 Crest Hill Lane in Davie, Nebraska.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quickly, I'll just explain the order of testimony. First up, we'll have staff speak, and then we'll have the applicant speak. Then we'll have proponent testimony, and then opposition testimony. And so we'll just, that'll be the order that we proceed through this.
And just to clarify for people, the applicant is the person who filed the appeal.
The applicant, no.
That's why I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no,
The
this
applicant
good.
is not the appellant. First it's the
Applicant is the
applicant.
person who applied for the
Right.
special use permit. Okay,
Yep, right.
good.
And then at the end, the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal too.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. George Wesselhoff, County Planner with the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Department. This special permit is located at 801 Crest Hill Lane, which is south of Davie Road, approximately 2 miles west of Davie. The zoning is AG agricultural, and there has been a special permit in the county zoning regulations since 1979 for this type of use. The applicant has been operating the use since the mid-1980s. He was approved by the state of Nebraska Department of Aeronautics, as well as the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, in 1985 as a personal or private heliport. And what brought this matter forth was a complaint received by the Building and Safety Department in 2020. And in doing research, it was discovered that although he had checked with the state and FAA, he did not have the local zoning permit, which is the special permit. And so that is what brought this forth. As part of his application, I'll show his site plan he submitted. The heliport is located on roughly the north side of the lot, and his home lot is to the south. This is Crest Hill Lane. He did provide noise documentation from the FAA from the 1970s. The helicopter in question is a early 1970s Bell helicopter, and he provided noise documentation in terms of a study that showed that the helicopter noise range would be in the 70 to 80 decibel range, roughly within a few hundred feet of the property. The health department reviewed that, the Lancaster Health Department reviewed that, and they compared it to the noise ordinance, which doesn't apply at this location, but they looked at it from a measuring stick standpoint to see how it would compare, and it would roughly be in the 75 decibel range over a 10-minute period. So it would be consistent with agricultural zoning if the noise ordinance applied at this location, which it does not. There is one waiver requested, and that's a waiver from the drainage and grading plan requirement, with which the county engineer supports, because they're not proposing any new hard surfacing. It's a grass landing field. And then finally, I would just mention that subsequent to the Planning Commission hearing, planning did reach out, and we contacted the Nebraska Department of Transportation, specifically Jeremy Burrell, the director of the Division of Aeronautics, and he confirmed that the Division of Aeronautics does not regulate, license, or inspect private heliports. That's the thing to keep in mind. This is a private heliport. The heliport owner, the applicant, Mr. Greb, did submit an application for registration to the Nebraska Department of Aeronautics in July of 1985. And that was a registration voluntary process to make the heliport available for emergency landing situations. In talking with Mr. Burrell, he indicated that the FAA, kind of similar, they don't inspect or license private heliports. Their main concern would be that it doesn't conflict with the national system. With that, I can answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
I do have one question. I want to go back to the noise study. And you probably said this, but I didn't quite catch it. The helicopter that the noise study was done on, that's the one currently being used? Or is that the one from 1985? It may be the same aircraft, I don't know that.
It's, and the applicant can be more precise, but it's a comparable aircraft from the 1970s. So it's not 1980s, it's 1970s.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Saying none, you're good.
Thank you.
The special permit applicant, please.
Good morning.
Swear you in first. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes. I'd like to thank the board, planning commission, building safety for past work on this particular project. So my name is Richard Greb. I've been operating, excuse me. I've been operating various different helicopters out of my property since 1985. I was not aware at the time that this special use permit was required. Like Mr. George Wesselhoff had mentioned, I did apply with the Nebraska Department of Aeronautics, FAA at the time, and there's never been an issue since 1985, operating 6 different helicopters of various kinds, the most recent being a 1971 ex-military OH-58 A+, which is comparable to a Bell helicopter, which the noise study was made on. I've had my pilot's license since 1976, various ratings, single engine land, instrument rated, rotorcraft, type rated in turbojet or turbofan jets. So I take my responsibility very seriously to avoid any conflict, any safety measures. I always take it very, very seriously. For whatever reason, in 2020, we were reported by somebody for various building violations, an ag building on a property that did not have permits, additions that we've done to our home over the years with no permits. So we had to deal with that in conjunction with the heliport. Those were all dismissed back in the 2020, I should say. And so the only remaining thing, as I understood, was the helipad, but in 2020, I had received a screenshot from, I think it was Building and Code, saying everything had been closed out. So I did operate the helicopter sporadically out of my property. I do maintain a hangar in Wahoo, Nebraska, where I always fuel it there. I don't keep any fuel in my property. So then I guess another complaint was filed in 2021, so 2022, that brought this to light that, yes, I do need a special use permit. So it was kind of ambiguous of whether I did or didn't, so it wasn't that I was trying to skirt the system. I just, and I do have a screenshot of that if you'd like to see that from 2020, okay? Okay, I don't know how this will.
Put it on the projector screen there.
Okay. Is that right side up there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this would have been from an email, I say from 2020. It looks like it was from Mr. Timothy Johnson. And these are all the violations that were reported, which were ambiguous, actually. So here's building codes had gone through, checked all our permitting processes. So that's on the left side here. And then this was the last screenshot I got from him, if you can read that. But basically on April 6th, he left a door tag that said that my wife and I do live here seasonally. born and raised in Lincoln, Nebraska, but we have a home in Arizona. We live 6 months out of the year. So at this time that he was out in April 6th, we were still at our home in Arizona. So then on April 15th, basically it just says complaint not justified, and it goes through, I can just read it. Complaint not justified, homeowner has permit for detached garage, inspection and final occupancy by the city of Lincoln, and there's their number. Homeowner has permit for helipad from Nebraska Avionics, airspace case, and references that number. And homeowner has provided building permit, landing pad, and drawings. That was way back from July 30th, 1985. So I think there's more underlying reasons why this was brought about. I think it's just neighborhood squabbles, so it was a reason to bring it about. Now, the only thing I would like to clarify with the FAA, Mr. George Wesselhoff had reached out to the director of Nebraska Department of Aeronautics, who is Jeremy Borrell, and that kind of got things kind of rolling again. So Mr. Borrell, without any prompting by me, he had made contact with Todd Hebert with the FAA just to try to clarify, since there's so much time had lapsed since the 80s and their procedures had changed and so forth. So he reached out to Todd Hebert with the airspace specialist down in Fort Worth, Texas, and then contacted me and suggested I call Mr. Hebert. So what transpired then was they said, considering the time delay, everything back in the 80s was done in written form. They seem to have lost some of the documentation, so Mr. Borrells forwarded everything from 1985 to him, and so he reviewed that before me speaking to him. He said, everything's done electronically now, so what he suggested is let's just clean this thing up. Let's take your paperwork from 1985 and piggyback it with the new electronic version. So unfortunately, he has not completed that yet, but this is kind of the timeline on what Mr. Hebert's doing. So I initially spoke to him on the 30th of August, and now this is progressing through the system right now. As of last Friday, he said he's close to having everything updated into their database, but he said it'd probably take another 2 weeks to get it formally finalized. But from the paper documentations that he received from Mr. Borrells from the Nebraska Department of Aeronautics, he said there's no infringement on the Class C airspace out of Lincoln, so they did not see any problems with it. So it's progressing through the system. And then there was also at the Planning Commission meeting, there was an accusation that I did not have someone had written in that I had no authorization from the Nebraska Department of Aeronautics, that was all bogus. So back in the early 2000s, or from 1985 to the early 2000s, the Nebraska Department of Aeronautics actually supplied me with a paper permit every year. Cost savings, they stopped doing that in early 2000. I think that's probably, Mr. Wesselhoff, I think had spoke to Mr. Borrells, and I may be going on a limb here, but I think he had informed that was the case, that they just don't deal with it anymore. So this would have been back, I think this was the last one I received, was in 2002, which basically says the certification at the Lancaster Chapman of Davie, Nebraska is duly registered. So I just want to put that on the record that it was duly registered with back in 1985 all the way up to the point where the state Department of Aeronautics don't really get involved in it anymore. So with that, any other questions?
Just, can you provide a copy of everything that you showed here
Oh,
to
sure.
the clerk's office? That's
Yeah.
just for the record.
Sure. And actually, I was at the briefing Thursday. I stopped in. There was a comment. I think you'd mentioned about the Jet A, or fuel storage on site. Like I said,
Talked about it, wasn't me, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. So to clarify that, the helicopter in question, the 71 OH-58 is jet fuel, but I don't store on-site fuel. Like I said, I have a hangar at Wahoo, so I just fuel it at that point. So the only fuel that's on is either, well, normally it's going to be less than a full tank of fuel on the helicopter at that point. Okay.
Thanks for that clarification.
No, that's helpful.
Pardon me?
Thanks for that
Oh,
clarification.
sure, okay. And this goes to, okay, so I'll give you this.
They can maintain a record, and then if you can email them copies of the screenshots you showed as well.
I can do that, sure, okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I just wanted to note that what you were showing us on the screen, it was very small at the top,
Okay.
but it was the FFA website, just because it might have been hard.
Oh,
for
yes,
people to
yes.
see on the
Would you like me to
screen.
pull it back up again?
No,
Sure.
no, I
Oh,
don't think it
okay.
needs to.
Yeah.
I just wanted to note that.
It's
what we were
a site is
looking
called
at.
ADIP, ADIP, and so, like I said, everything's done electronically now, and they said paper shuffles, when they got it in the system, they lost one of the documents. They said, let's just clean it up and get everything in through electronic version now, and that way it's permanent in the system.
Yeah.
Commissioner, if I may, Mr. Krebs, appreciate you being here this morning. Just to clarify a couple of things that I tried to make notes. You've had a pilot's license since 1976.
Yes.
And you've operated helicopter since 1985. Is that from this property?
Yes, yes. My rotorcraft rating probably came in 1982, and I acquired a helicopter in 1985.
Okay. Yeah,
So-
and that's from this property. in
Right, so
question.
I've had 6 different versions of different helicopters at that location, and we're in an HOA. It's never been brought up before. There's never been an issue with any of the neighbors up to this point. So for 30-some years, and the other helicopters are actually louder than the one I have now. They were piston models, whereas this is a turbine, like the National Guard uses.
Since 1985 is a long time ago. You talked about paper changing to electronics. I know I've driven several cars during that time period. How does the FFA take into account what the landscape is or what might be obstacles, that sort of thing?
Yes, yeah.
And how's that changed? Because I would imagine the trees have probably grown. I don't know about overhead lines, that sort of thing.
Okay. There's no power lines or anything around our property. My primary ingress and egress is to the west. And I've taken all the trees are out along our fence line at that point for probably about a 200-foot swath. The neighbor immediately to the west actually has spoken out in favor. Unfortunately, they could not make it today. They came to the Planning Commission hearing a month ago, and they also wrote in. They may have written it again. I don't know. It's Terry and Stephanie Thompson. So my departure path and my arrival path is over their 60 acres, and there's no obstructions at all. The only obstruction is a 3-foot barbed wire fence that I have to go over.
Of that.
Right. And that's the other question. My operation, I have to either take off or land into the wind if it exceeds a certain number of knots. In this case, it's 20 knots. So if there's ever time that I can't safely come back in from the west or depart to the west, I either don't take off, or if I'm coming back, I go back to Wahoo because I can come in from any direction up there. So
I just did have,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Commissioner Amundson and then Commissioner
I
Hayes.
do have a question about the nature of your business, okay? You mentioned in here that you usually, it's about 3 days a week?
it's probably on the high side, yes.
That's on the high side?
Yes.
How do you transport people? What do you do?
Well, I don't transport anybody.
Okay, you don't
anymore.
transport anybody?
No. Personally, private use. At 65, I can't even get insurance for passengers, so it's just my wife and I. So I've always flown. So it's a hobby. So it's just the majority of the time it's kept at Wahoo. There's occasions like a Friday, for example, I like to bring it back to my property because I'll go to a fly-out breakfast that starts at 8 o'clock and from 8 to 10. So I'll leave at 8:30, something like that. to be able to leave early. If not, I have to drive from Davie to Wahoo, pull the helicopter out, whereas I can have it all checked and everything the night before and take off from my property on Saturday morning if we're gonna go to a fly-in breakfast or state fly-in, something like that.
Okay, so it's for your personal use?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
No business. We're not allowed to have, operate any commercial operations out of our, according to our HOA anyway.
Commissioner Vest?
Well, that was kind of where I was heading, just the frequency, maybe 3 times a week, you said
Right.
would be the high end. And then part of the year, I have a lot of pickleball friends who winter in Arizona as well. Part of the year, you're out of state then.
Yes, yes. And I'll pickle it and it'll be in Wahoo, yeah.
Okay.
Or there's been times where we've flown it to Arizona. If I can find a place to hang it there, I'll commit to 2 days of getting there to have it out there.
It's clear you enjoy flying,
Yeah.
sir. I mean, that's part of the beauty of our society. People have different interests, and they get to pursue what life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Oh, I appreciate that. Getting back to the 3 times per week, my wife says, why did you put it down? It's maybe 3 times a month, but there could be a time that I could have 3 takeoff in our landings in a day, within a week. So I might be in one day and then no more for the rest of the time.
Flaherty, will we have a chance to ask staff a couple of clarifying questions again before the end?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we always pull staff back at the very end for
Yeah,
questions.
thank you.
Yeah, I just note that you'll stay, Mr. Krebs, because we're going to hear a lot of testimony
Yeah,
from
you'll-
other folks, and we'll want to ask you questions to
Yeah,
clarify.
you'll have an opportunity for rebuttal and
Okay.
questions to the board at the end.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you.
any other questions for the applicant? Okay,
Okay, thanks again.
thank you very much. We will start with proponent testimony. Anyone in favor of the special permit? That is not in favor of the appeal, but in favor of the special permit. And proponent and opponent testimony will both be limited to 5 minutes a person. Is there anyone? Yeah, come on up.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Julie Parham. Okay, good morning. My name is Julie Parham, and along with my husband Randy Parham and our 2 children, we reside at 17301 Northridge Lane, Davie, Nebraska. So we are one of the 14 homes that are part of the Northridge Neighborhood Homeowners Association, each home probably having between 3 and 6 acres as part of their home. My husband Randy is here also, and he submitted an email in support of the application. And today we are here primarily because we believe that as citizens we should just be able to live our lives at our residences, enjoy that without a lot of needless interference. And while I support the right of everyone to express their opinion, I am surprised that a helipad that has existed since the 1980s has become an issue in our small neighborhood. So let me provide you some background about Randy and my personal situation. So we have lived at our residence with our 2 children for the past 7 years. We share a property line with the Greb residence to the south of their property. I currently work for Marriott International. My employer is based out of Washington, D.C., where I previously worked for 25 years and where my husband and I resided. When we moved our family to Nebraska, which is a return home for me, as I grew up in Ceresco, since that time I've worked remote full-time from our home for Marriott International Hotels. As a remote employee, I am at my desk working from approximately 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. In these past 7 years, I have maybe heard Mr. Greb's helicopter 1 to 2 times. The Grebs spend, I guess we've talked about that, half of the year in Arizona, so are not even present at their home 6 months out of the year. I have never found it disruptive to my work or to the personal enjoyment of our residence and acreage. In fact, we find it somewhat interesting on the rare occasion we see it take off or land. Additionally, we are accustomed to just the normal happenings of everyday life in the country and find them just to be part of the fabric of everyday life. The National Guard performs training exercises with helicopters just to the east of our property multiple times throughout the year. And we are surrounded by a farming community that has crop dusters occasionally flying low over our area and homes. Let me touch on safety. As parents to 2 children, I can assure you that just like you, if we had safety concerns that another property adjacent to ours were putting our children at risk, I would not be here supporting this. We do not have any safety concerns. So one thing I just brought along with me, I'm going to show as I talk about it. Okay, I want to touch on property value because this has been brought up before. So I have brought with me a printout from our realtor who sold us our acreage. Our former realtor emails us monthly, just in case we're thinking about selling, if he would like us to use him again. So.
There's several realtors on this board. I'm sure they do.
So he's doing a good job, right?
That's right.
He's doing a good job. So on August 13th, Mark Meyer-Dirks sends me the monthly report. We purchased our home in 2017. It has gone up 76%, according to this. Okay? So, for the past 6 years, on another topic now, for the past 6 years, I have been the secretary-treasurer for the Northbridge Neighborhood Association. As both a homeowner for 7 years and a board member for 6 years, I have attended every meeting in that time of the Homeowners Association. Not one single homeowner has ever brought forward to the Homeowners Association any issues regarding the helicopter landing pad. One of the persons that filed this appeal has been president of that Homeowners Association for my entire time. I consider our family friendly to all of our neighbors, and we hope to remain so. However, I am at a loss as why this has become an issue now. Okay. And here is just to visually show you the Grubbs property.
I'll let you finish showing this. That is your time then.
Okay.
But
The Grubbs property, our property, the McGuires who have submitted a support, the Thompsons who submitted support, and the Eklunds who submitted support online.
Well, put that back, ma'am, just one more time to make sure. Go through that again, please. I just want to make sure I'm following.
Okay. So there is one lane that comes down this way,
Right.
through the middle. This is Randy and my property. This is the Grubbs property. The Eklunds submitted their support online.
Okay.
The McGuires submitted their support online, and Bob McGuire is here today in support. And then the Thompsons submitted their support online and spoke at the previous event.
it's helpful. Thanks. Would you leave a copy of that? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak as a proponent of the application? This is proponents for the special permit. Any other proponents? Okay. Any opposition to the special permit? So people in favor of the appeal? And I should say that there'll be an opportunity for anyone wishing to testify in a neutral capacity at the end as well. I failed to say that earlier.
All of our testimonies today and supporting documents, there's a packet for each one.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name for the record.
My name is Dennis Beasing. I'm a resident of Northridge Acreages. My address is 17401 Northridge Lane. Applicant has claimed in the previous applicant's for this heliport to be the equivalent of a washing machine. According to the takeoffs, and this is military.
Just give it a second. There you go.
Equivalents with about the same type of helicopter, and it comes up with 88.6 to 90 decibels on takeoff, 76 to 90 decibels on regular flying. That's a far cry from a washing machine, as a washing machine they rate at 45 to 55 decibels. Also, we've had adjacent neighbors, Huck and Grant, complaining about horses being spooked and cattle. Huck has cattle just west of Grebs, not the exact acreage, but the one next to that. Not only that, but in our bylaws, Article 7 says that no noxious or offensive trade or activity shall be carried about which may become annoyance to anyone on the president. And then Article 10 claims no nuisance advertising, billboards, or other advertising, or unreasonable disturbance of quiet of any holder on the adjacent lots. And then also, we've had a report from a Jerry Coles, owner of 10 acres from Stanton County. He was required to get approval from all adjacent neighbors to build or use an airplane landing zone for his privately owned 10 airplane. That's what I have. There's copies of this in all the folders. Okay.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Good morning.
Morning. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Please state your name for the record.
Mike Ketter. This is my wife, Deb. We live at 179 Northridge Lane. I am currently a vice president of Northridge Association. And the handouts that was just presented to you kind of gives a further detail on the discussions today. Hopefully this will aid in answering questions that you may have later after this meeting and verify some of the information we're presenting. We have numbered some of the details for ease of reference because of the short time frame we were given. We will each present a specific topic and a summary at the end, as there may be reasons and concerns for opposition to this permit. You have the phone numbers and signatures that the neighbors have overwhelmingly signed against the permit and expressed concerns through emails. We realize the majority of the public does not rule a permit, but your majority does, and common sense should be considered in permitting a heliport in a dense, multi family neighborhood. That it just doesn't make any sense. And you can see by your map, it is close. There were a few families that did not sign and responded with comments like, wondered why he just don't use the hangar that is close by. He mentioned the one. And two, a few said it was far enough away that they were neutral, but if they were closer to the Northridge neighborhood, they would object. Then commented, why would he do this if he knows these families that signed and disagree? Don't he care? A couple did not like the idea, but were not wanting to cause friction and fear of retribution from Mr. Greb. With that, I would like to bring up the safety concerns that we have. The trees that's been mentioned have grown very tall over many years and have tightened the path he has for the approach and departures. In case of a fire, our area is protected by the volunteer fire the rural fire and rescue. What safety measures has Mr. Greb implemented to prevent and address a fire? I spoke yesterday with the Raymond Fire Chief, and I want to, before I go on with this next few sentences, he is impartial. He wanted me to make sure that he just answered our questions. He's not biased either way. I spoke yesterday with the Raymond Fire Chief, who wants me to make a statement that he is not taking sides in this matter. He will just provide answers to my questions. My main question was how long would it take to get a volunteer fire department response if we were to have a helicopter fire in our neighborhood? He said it would depend on the time of day during daytime. Most of their volunteer department members do have outside jobs. He said he could likely get someone in a personal vehicle within a few minutes. So the time that it takes them to get to the fire station in Raymond and then respond is not naturally like the city. They are not able to hook to hydrants, which we do not have. You may have one person arriving in his personal vehicle and would be just assessing the situation that is out there. As far as having correct personnel, probably they're looking at 20 to 25 minutes at best. This delayed response would allow the fuel to expand rapidly through the neighborhood, especially in a dry spell. We have had a couple recent pasture fires next to our neighborhood that caused damage because it took time to get backup water trucks. What they have is 2 tankers that each carry 2,000 gallons of water and a pumper tanker that carries 1,000 gallons of water. They do have to take those vehicles back to Raymond to get the additional water. Raymond is about 7 miles from Northridge neighborhood, and that's just one way. He did say that if it was a large fire, the Ceresco and Valparaiso Volunteer Fire Department could arrive with additional water supplies. Ceresco is about 8 miles from us, and Valparaiso is 12 miles.
And that is your time, sir. So, do you have any closing remarks to make on that final thought? Just briefly.
I'm just trying to go down here because I wanted to get into the safety. That was the main topic that I had. And insurance is a concern as many companies are getting out of that helicopter liability business because of the high cost of fire damage, lawsuits and whatnot. Mr. Greb did agree insurance is changing, as he said the Planning Commission, that he will not give rides to his friends anymore because of the insurance. So my question is, who pays for the damages if a fire destroys their homes? I don't think.
Okay. Thank you for your remarks.
Okay, and Deb has a.
Yeah, I just have a little short video here. And
yeah, you'll have to be
sorry.
sworn in separately. Yeah.
Deborah Ketter. I live at 17900 North Ridge Lane.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Before I show this video, I want you all to know that when our kids were little, on a Sunday afternoon, he would fly around the neighborhood, and that's an invasion of privacy. And now our children are gone, but we have 9 grandchildren that are over a lot. So I'll show you the short video, but there's only a division of pine trees between the homes, okay? Can you see this?
Very interesting. The helicopter supposedly, the helicopter pad is never used.
and it goes out more than a couple times a week. Okay.
All righty. Any other opponent testimony?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Chuck Colas. I reside at 17700 North Ridge Lane at Davie. I'm a supporter of a local church, and I do many volunteer activities in the area, including the gathering place near here once a month. I'm also president of the North Ridge Neighborhood Association, and the majority of our board members are against this special permit. Mr. Greb states he wants to be a good steward in his neighborhood. I provided each of you a copy of our neighborhood covenants, and I've marked the violations that in there. And the very first one says that all lots shall be used for permanent single family dwellings. That was number 1. And number 7, which was already mentioned, that no noxious or offensive activity shall be carried upon on any lot, nor shall anything be done thereon which may become an annoyance or nuisance to the neighborhood. And then number 10, no nuisance shall be permitted upon the said lots, and said lots shall not be used in any way or for any purpose which may endanger the health or unreasonably disturb the quiet of any holder of the adjoining lots. And then I also went down and marked number 15, that says, in the event that any person is violating our covenants or restrictions, it shall be lawful for any person or persons or the association to prosecute any proceedings at law or in equity against a person attempting to violate our covenants, and to prevent him from doing so and to recover damages or other dues for the violations. And then I also marked one further down about enforcement. I would like to share you an article from Gull Lake Planning Commission. It's a lakeside community near Brainerd, Minnesota, which previously voted to deny a helipad ordinance by a vote of 3-2, sending that recommendation onto their city council, which unanimously voted against the measure. Despite safety records and licensing requirements, the commission members, the proposal said nothing can guarantee complete safety. They also cited the city's comprehensive plan, saying helicopters do not fit the character of our community. A helicopter pilot said, "I feel helicopters in congested areas belong at airports and not in backyards. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. Helicopters are really loud, too loud, and you live on a lake and you want to enjoy your nice view and hopefully the peace and quiet. Why should one person's desire for convenience by operating a helicopter in a residential area trump everyone else's right to their peace and quiet? Land the helicopter at the airport and take your luxury SUV back to the lake," is what he said. Most private helicopter operators have enough common sense and courtesy not to subject their neighbors to it. Also in this article, a real estate appraiser from California cited that houses built next to a helipad potentially drop 20 to 30% in property value. And part of buying a home is researching those zoning ordinances and seeing what could potentially be put in your area. Planning board member, I don't know if I have her name quite right, Fife, said about a month ago that she grew up with a helicopter next door. She said it was very frustrating and did not support the permit, especially because the permit went on in perpetuity, not just for Mr. Greb, but to the next landowner also. In a neighborhood association meeting minutes from June 19th, 1995, Mr. Greb made a motion that any individual or minor who does damage to anyone's property or to that of the association, they will be held responsible for those damages. And it was recorded, seconded, and recorded, and the motion carried. Does Mr. Greb still believe in his motion? Neighbors could potentially lose thousands of dollars if this special permit for a helipad is approved. Mr. Greb, be a good steward to your neighbors and community and withdraw your request for a special permit. My supporting documents are there. I also just maybe want to point out one other thing. That video that you just saw was separated by 2 rows of trees, and right behind it was a neighbor's house. I mean, he was practically giving those trees a haircut, hovering around in a hole, the lowest point on that lot. And if Mr. Tim Eklund had been here today or had seen that video, maybe he would have a different opinion from what he stated. He probably has never seen this video. But thank you very much.
I do have a question for the state. You would take a question, sir, is that
Sure.
right? Yeah, just clarifying a couple things, Mr. Coles. You're the president of the North Ridge Neighborhood Association?
Since 2017.
You're the president.
Yes.
I thought I heard testimony from the Mrs. Graham. I
Secretary.
believe.
She was the-
She's the
Secretary
secretary.
Parham.
Okay.
Right.
That clarifies that, thank you. So, I mean, I'm trying to capture, the issues that are involved here because, we're going to be facing a decision on what position we're going to take. And we've got a situation here that's been going on since 1985, almost 40 years. Has something changed that have brought it to a head at this point in time, or?
My wife is going to be speaking to that.
Oh, okay. More testimony will
Mhm,
follow. Maybe
yes.
that'll clarify it then.
Mhm.
All right, we'll allow your wife to.
Anything else?
Have anything?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Krista Colas.
And before
My
you start-
address is 17, oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine, absolutely. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead.
My address is 17700 North Ridge Lane, Davie, Nebraska. The number one issue, and this is kind of just a synopsis of what everybody else has said, but kind of put out to, and you'll have this in your packet as well. The number one issue the neighbors have with this helicopter in our neighborhood is safety. Mr. Greb testified at the Planning Commission hearing. He himself said that safety was probably the number one issue. Mr. Greb has misspoken several times and in writing when he said the NDOT approves private heliports when they do not. He said it again today. It's actually a registration only. They do not approve. The NDA's letter specifically told him in 1985 that registration should not be construed to mean Department of Aeronautics approval. His application claimed it approved. His application said the Lincoln Airport staff reviewed in 1985, 1986. But obviously, lots of things have changed since then. For example, the increase in the size of our pine trees in the neighborhood have grown a lot in the past 39 years. Has Mr. Greb contacted them for a current review? I read an article that said, and this is in your packet, an integral part of a heliport function must be enhancement of safety. One of the things that caught my eye was an inadequate approach departure path. FAA recommends that 2 approaches are constructed and the paths need to be as far apart as possible and relative to the expected winds. The winds are also very important and the heliports need to be designed for airflow, especially downwind in the vicinity of other buildings, which can give the unwary pilot an unwanted surprise. Mr. Greb on the east side of his property is surrounded by very tall pine trees that would affect how the wind from the east would come into this heliport. There's also possibility of 180-degree shifts in the wind direction. Mike spoke to you about the concern of a fire. What safety measures has Mr. Greb implemented to prevent and address a fire? Please remember we rely on a volunteer fire department who all have other jobs They have a very limited water supply, and when there's a fire, time is of the essence. Mr. Greb knew that he was required to have a special permit, and he testified in the Planning Commission meeting, and this is a quote, "It's on me that I didn't get the permit when I put the building up," which I believe is prior to 1985. He was also reminded in April 2020 that he needed a special permit, yet he did not apply for one until June of this year, 2024. Dennis spoke to you about the noise concerns of the neighborhood. This is our second concern of importance. In your packet, you will see documentations that Dennis showed you with the helicopter noise that was conducted at the FAA Aviation Facility Experimental Center in Atlantic City, New Jersey. This test was done in June of 1978. It specifically is testing the Boeing 206L helicopter, which is what Mr. Greb has compared the helicopter he flies to, although his helicopter he mentioned was a military helicopter. It breaks it down into decibels in the approach, the takeoff, and the level of flyby by west to east, and the level of flyby from east to west. That's also in your packet. Anyway, the noise level they could come up with could be as high as 90.7 decibels. The takeoff was as high as 90.0. The level flyby was as high as 86.6 to 87.9 decibel. Something interesting I learned about decibel measurements. Before that, the research in the helicopter that Mr. Greb flies has 1 bar, which is noisier than a helicopter with 2, because a helicopter with 2 would have a shorter blade than the one he flies. Another piece of information that's in your packet is concerning the logarithmic scale, which concerns the decibel levels, which is interesting. The smallest audible sound, which is near total silence, is 0 decibel. It's a logarithmic scale, so a sound, well, you'll see this in your packet, but it's an interesting measurement because a sound 10 times more powerful is 10 decibels.
That is your time, so I'll ask you
Okay.
to close up your thoughts here.
Yes. In closing, I would like to reiterate something Mr. Greb said in his testimony, that he would like to continue to be a good steward of the neighborhood and around the area. And he doesn't think he's broken any rules. You'll see in your packet, there's signatures of 42 people who disagree with that statement. And in my research, I found that the mission of the Lancaster County Board is to provide innovative, sustainable governmental services for a healthy, safe, diverse, and vibrant community. Those of us opposing this special permit are asking you to deny the permit for our community's well-being and safety. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I do have one.
Yeah.
Since your husband pointed to you, ma'am, I'm going to ask you, has something, this gentleman's been flying his helicopter now
Yes.
for almost 40 years.
Yes.
No incidents, and I haven't heard anybody, some concerns with cattle or livestock, but no
Yes.
incidents that were untoward behavior or damage. But has something changed that brings us here today?
Yes. You may remember in January or February of 2020, Kobe Bryant was killed in a helicopter accident in California. In my mind, I'm thinking, if that can happen to someone who has a professional helicopter pilot, taking him around to different areas can crash. It could happen to anybody. If you remember, Brooke Beringer passed away in a plane crash just a few miles from our house. It can happen. Obviously, we don't plan on those. They're accidents, and that's why we call them accidents. But our main thing is safety.
Okay.
Very good.
And I do have a question too, this is the one thing. You mentioned that the pine trees are growing up and so forth, and he does fly rather low over that. I don't know if you can necessarily measure the distance between the tops and the trees and where he comes in.
Well, you can
Right?
see in that video
It was pretty,
that he's pretty low in there, and he was hovering in that video. That wasn't the entire video, but you see him turning around before he leaves to the west.
Mhm.
And again, the trees that are on the east side of that property are very tall, pine trees.
and I do have another question too. This is also a change since probably 1985. You know, we've got drones now, and there is a huge concern about drones going around. And although this may seem unrelated, my son has a drone that he flies, but he has to have special permission in order to fly that drone because of privacy concerns. And is privacy concern a concern of you?
Yes, it is. I think those of us that have come forth in opposition feel like we have to be a little bit on guard when it comes to Mr. Grebb's personality. And so in that respect, and even before that, yes, because we've even had neighbors that live across 14th Street that have said when they're out in their hot tub in the summer, they know he's hovering above them. And they just said it's really kind of creepy. But I understand feelings aren't, the major thing that you can go on. But you can go on the safety aspect, and that's what is important to me.
Well, I mean,
Any further questions?
and so I'm trying to weigh out, because we're put in a position here, Krista, it's Krista, is that right?
Yes.
Where a person, an entity, sometimes it's a business, wants to do something that brings value to them. In this case, we have an individual who likes to fly a helicopter. Not everybody's cup of tea. And then the question is, how do we balance that against the impact that others have? What's the rights that this individual has within his property to do a legally sanctioned activity? Certainly there are risks anytime you go up in the air. When I get on a plane, there's a risk that we won't make it, but people do everything in their power to minimize or avoid that risk. So the solution, you're just asking us, and you're the folks who are signed these letters, you're just asking us to ban private helicopter flights from Lancaster County? Would that be the position you're taking?
I have no problem with somebody owning 20 acres and having a helicopter. We, in our area, Mr. Grebb owns 2 lots. So the lot that he has the helipad on is separate from his residence.
Okay.
So I have no problem with, like I said, a good-sized area where people can land and take off. It's not a problem, but we have homes very nearby. You have a map.
I saw that.
Yes, in your packet, that's labeled with houses. The houses are actually the little squares on there, and they're appropriate as to where they are. So you'll see that Mr. Grebb's helicopter is not near his house. Neither is it near Parham's house. Their lot actually will border Mr. Grebb's residence property, not the helicopter. Dennis.
How large those lots are, because that's different than in my neighborhood,
Right, right. They're between 3, close to 4 acres apiece.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hamilton, did you have another question?
That was what my question was.
Any further questions?
Thank you for taking my question.
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you. Is there any further opposition testimony? Any other opponents to the special permit? Okay, saying none. Is there anyone who wishes to testify in a neutral capacity on the special permit? Anyone who wants to talk in a neutral capacity?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name.
Dwayne Rauscher. I just
hearing all of the comments that's gone on, I didn't want to go for or against, but it's a tough decision. But I'm kind of wondering, you know, in the future, what's going to happen? How many helicopter pads are you going to have out there at that acreages, those little acreages around there? If you approve this one, how many more are you going to get? So that's my concern, is it's going to affect the entire neighborhood. To me, sound level would be my biggest concern. Because in my neighborhood where I live, my concern is the garbage trucks that go in. 6 o'clock in the morning, right there, they're right going through the neighborhood. Noise level's horrible. And there's not just one company, one truck. So you've got multiple trucks, multiple companies. So my concern is, if you approve this one here, what's going to happen in the future? And if this is something that goes with the property, an approval like this, you know, this is forever. So that's my concern. I know it's a tough decision for you guys, but I think that you need to evaluate. If you had lived in one of these houses and had a helicopter pad next door to you, what would you think? Thank you.
Anyone who wants to testify in a neutral capacity? Any further neutral testimony? Okay, with that, we'll pull staff back up.
And Commissioners, while staff's approaching, we do have a series of emails to read into the record.
Yeah,
We have 3 in support from Randy Parham, Bob and Sue McGuire, Delwyn and Deborah Crone, and we have 2 in opposition from Phyllis Vance Larson and Katie Roberts.
Does staff have any further comments?
I would just mention statistically, we actually did look at the records. This special permit type under Article 13 includes both airfields, agricultural airfields, and heliports. And since 1979, this has been in the ordinance. There have been a few airfield special permits. This is the only heliport special permit we're aware of in all these years.
I do have some questions, if I may. There was concern about fuel and what that would, but that's not covered under this special permit. That's covered in a different way, is that?
Fuel is not a item that's covered under this special
Right.
permit, correct?
And that we know that the special permit stays with the property. So one of my questions is that right now we're hearing how it's being used currently, and we need to think about how it will be used or could be used in the future. And so as long as it's not commercial, it is correct that they could transport any number of family members, friends, what have you. Is that correct?
The special permit criteria would not limit the number of people if it's personal. If later the status would change to commercial, they would have to amend the special permit if it would be approved.
Right. And it doesn't limit the number of times they can take off and land.
Correct.
One of the things, number 5 in the zoning regulations does say all farm crops, except hay, are considered as structures. The height of such structures shall be considered the height of the crops when they're fully grown, regardless of the crop's actual height at any time. Does that apply to the trees that are in the area?
I'm not aware of any regulation for the trees. No.
It seems like if corn is considered a structure, a tree would be as well. Did you have something, Andrew?
Yeah, Andrew Barnes, Lancaster County Attorney's Office. So when it comes to actual like obstructions and like the height of those obstructions, that's where you get into like FAA regulations at 14 CFR 77.17. And that's where the federal government has set up regulations for airports and heliports of, you know, what counts as an obstruction. And it breaks it further down as to, you know, at ground level, mobile obstructions, sea level obstructions, and the lowest obstruction you can go is at 200 feet. So these would have to be pretty big, tall trees. And then there's also, you know, ingress, egress approaches. And so I think that would probably be the most pertinent concern. However, considering the fact that the applicant has gotten the registration of the area from both NDOT Aeronautics as well as FAA, and they didn't object to the registration on that. I would assume that the trees weren't an issue at that point. So,
I have a question for you, Andrew, actually. So some of the things that were brought as objections were insurance. Is that something we should consider in making a decision like this, whether or not an activity is insurable? That I'm not an insurance expert. I don't think you are. So,
thankfully, I'm not. It's something that the board can consider. But in terms of like the actual like land usage of the permit, it's not like the main aspect of the permit. It's something that is on the outside of considerations.
the other thing, I guess, a second thing was, again, I know nothing about anything that flies in the air, except that where I can buy a ticket to get on one. Safety, like safety considerations for airports or for helicopters and planes, like that's really up to FAA to figure that. That's not us to figure out whether or not a particular helicopter or plane is safe. Is that fair assessment?
Yes.
And then the final thing that we were asked to consider was these covenants. Who actually, like, if somebody's breaking a covenant, the county board isn't the place to argue that. Where does that argument go?
My recommendation is, speaking on behalf of the county attorney's office, when it comes to the dispute between the applicant and the HOA, when it comes to the covenants, that's a private dispute between those two parties. The county board has none of that.
Okay.
That'd be something in court.
So a court would be a better, like, or something.
Yeah,
like
that's just a private dispute between those two parties. The county board has no interest in that.
Okay, which I think makes a lot of sense. It's interesting to me that, I mean, not all the lots even have houses on them. This isn't the only one that doesn't have a house on it. That was one of the HOA covenants that was pointed out, is that everything's supposed to have a house on it, but they clearly don't. So, okay, thank you.
And I do have a question regarding the growth of the neighborhood in the last 40 years. Can you speak to that? Do you know how that neighborhood has grown and changed?
I don't know that we looked at the building permit records, but there's 14 homes, which was stated by one of the persons that testified. And there are a few lots that are vacant or that do not have homes. And then I think there's approximately 18 homes within a half-mile radius of the site as well.
Including the ones in that
18 additional homes.
Additional, okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
18 additional homes within half a mile.
Correct, outside of the subdivision. I actually have a exhibit map. So the heliport site is here. This is the Northridge subdivision, and then this is a half-mile buffer. So there's 14 homes within Northridge, and then around 18 homes approximately within this half-mile buffer.
Any further questions for staff? Thank you both.
Thank you.
Oh.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Steve Hendrickson with the Planning Department. Just wanted to provide one clarification just in looking through the regulations for the special permit. The special permit type is for airfields and commercial agri-fields and heliports. The portion of the discussion about row crops and everything else falls into the portion of the text for airfields. It's not in the portion that would be related to heliports, because certainly the impact of a plane taking off is different than a helicopter, which has the ability to go straight up.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. That's the end of staff testimony then. The applicant has an opportunity to make closing remarks.
I need to be resworn. I guess I'd like just to reiterate the fact of I've been out there since 1986, and all of a sudden this has all come to pass now, which seems a little strange to me. Also, the video that was shown by Mrs. Kidder, that was as I was taking off. And part of the procedure is to do a clearing turn to make sure there's nothing in my way before I take off. If you notice, it was to the west. And George has had that sheet up here. If you notice, I don't think there's any homes at all on the departure path or the arrival path. And that's why I go out that area. That's why the trees have been eliminated for about a 200-mile swatch here. So as far as the trees growing up, it's a moot point because I don't come in over the trees. Like I said, if it's a situation where there's a wind factor and I can't come in from the west or depart to the west, either I don't take off, or if I'm coming back, I'll go back to Wahoo, where it's a safer approach at that point. It was brought up about fires. I have probably 50 gallons of fuel, possibly on the helicopter at any given time. I think a combine probably holds more than that, and there's fires, during harvest all the time. So I don't think that that's anything different than as far as a fire hazard. There's probably less of a hazard than it would be for a combine. Other than that, I guess that's pretty much my rebuttal to what has been brought up.
And I do have a question. Okay, you were notified that you needed to apply for a special permit in 2020, but you didn't until 2024?
Okay, a couple reasons. I'll have to send the screenshot. I can bring it back up again that I got from the city. Said everything was closed. You mind if I grab my iPad again?
Can you just clarify what you mean by everything is closed?
Oh,
That was the email that he showed.
there were numerous complaints
Oh, okay,
filed.
okay.
There was numerous complaints filed for not having building permits. I was
okay.
having one of our property, or I have a carriage house. My wife has a art studio above it. We were accused of renting that out to someone, so it was a illegal occupancy. Whereas all it was a light on a timer when we're gone during the winter. So somebody thinks that they're there. Obviously, somebody had to come on our property to see that. I won't go into names, but I had to get a cease and desist order to keep people off our property while we're not there, because obviously somebody has come onto our property to see these things. There were building permits for additions in 2012 that they said we didn't have. So I had to prove all that. And then the initial one that was all in this whole package was from 1985. The ag building never was permitted, where that was permitted. So in 2020, I get again, I can't remember the fellow's name, but he says these are all basically been closed out. Everything's approved. We're okay. So I thought I was good. So I came back maybe one time and landed at the house, and was filed again, I guess, of one of these individuals had filed a complaint. So I just, from that point on, I just kept it at Wahoo until I'm applying for the special permit now, because I just would like to have that, once or twice a month coming into my property.
I have a couple of questions that are really not as much about what we are able to rule on this on, but just for my own information. One is, do you have to file a flight plan? We talked about the drones do.
No, not on a VFR flight.
Okay.
A visual flight, I do not.
Uh-huh.
I'm in contact with, if I'm within airspace, I have to make contact to the Lincoln Tower or Wahoo or any airport that I'm going into.
And then my other question, I'm always concerned about, we have wildfires happening all the time now, and anything could be that spark that starts it. Do you keep a fire extinguisher? Do you keep anything on the property?
Yeah, on the property,
Yeah.
in the helicopter, yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is. And I guess the other question was, as far as safety, I've never flown over anyone's home. I would like to have them come up for me, but in 30-some years, it's not common sense to fly over somebody's property. If I have a problem, I need to land. So this statement that I'm hovering around somebody's property over their hot tub, you can hover in ground effect, which means it helps the force of the air going down helps keep you up. You can hover in ground effect for as long as you want, but when you're at altitude, you can't hover because it's not, you overheat the helicopter. So I can't be hovering over somebody's property. It's impossible. I have to have forward motion.
Commissioner, yes. One of the points that was brought up was insurance. Tell us about the insurance that you're required to carry to operate.
You really don't have to have insurance other than for liability insurance.
Okay, liability.
So, yeah, liability. And, well, you're not even required to have that. But if you don't, you can get a lawsuit.
Seems like a good idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
I would.
do you carry liability?
I'm self-insured.
Self-insured,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Are we, any further questions for the applicant?
The other one that, and Commissioner, that was a nice job of summarizing the concerns, because that's our goal here, is to hear the concerns that are brought before us. And I mean, safety, what, are you the mechanic as well? I mean, obviously, if you go up in your helicopter, you're intending to land in your helicopter.
Sure.
I mean, you're not, this isn't an activity that you take on carelessly or
Right.
lightly, but tell us a little bit about the efforts you take to maintain your equipment in a safe and working
Well, the
condition.
FAA has a mandate of inspections, so those are maintained. And so, as far as proficiency, every 2 years I have to have a flight review. When I was flying jets, I would have to go in every 6 months. Now it's every 2 years.
Okay. On a totally unrelated issue to the whole thing, it was odd that someone of Kobe Bryant's stature was in a helicopter that crashed. Did you learn anything about the conditions that caused that crash? I'm curious.
Pressure from a high wealth individual, wanted to get someplace, wanted to get point A to point B. The pilot should have rejected that flight, but he was under a lot of pressure. And the unfortunate thing is, that particular helicopter was equipped with autopilot, but he was not certified to use this autopilot. All he had done is push a button and it would have avoided everything. But he didn't do it because he was going to break regulation, so he ended up dying, plus killing other people. But it was a fog. They basically flew into a mountaintop because it was fog.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, with that, we will go ahead and close the public hearing on 5C.
Am I correct that we will vote on this matter next week, next
Yeah.
Tuesday then?
Is that right?
Gives
Yeah,
us
next-
time.
Next Tuesday is when we'll take the vote on the matter. It is now 10:49. Luckily, this morning is very well scheduled
Our
because
TSD
our
is
TSD is
starting in
at 11, and we're not here to new business yet.
I texted Roger.
So why don't, okay.
And we have a staff meeting scheduled.
Right.
We have a staff meeting after this as
Whose
well.
idea was that?
So we have to, at the very least, I think for the staff meeting, we'll move into the 113, right? And then let's go ahead and just try to proceed through new business here. Let's plan on doing the signing in 113 though afterwards. So, okay, all right. Mr. Clerk, please proceed.
Item 6, new business. 6A, a request under Personnel Rule 17.14D for a one-time cash award of $500 to Gideon Gillespie.
I move approval.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. 6B, a resolution in the matter of amending Article 1, Section 6 of the Lincoln Lancaster County Air Pollution Control Program Regulations and Standards. Resolutions are 22-0083.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. 6C, a resolution in the matter of amending procedures and the regulation of on-site wastewater treatment systems, Resolution R220086.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 6D, resolution in the matter of amending procedures for the inspection of on-site water supply systems and on-site wastewater treatment systems prior to the sale, transfer, and conveyance of property, Resolution R220084.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. 6E, resolution in the matter of amending sections 6, 15, and 29 regulations for the operating of body, art, and piercing establishments, Resolution R22-0082.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. 6F, resolution in the matter of amending the open burning permits resolution R22-0085.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. 6G, resolution in the matter of adopting the county zoning and subdivision fee schedules.
Approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Andrew Barnes, Lancaster County Attorney's Office. There is a correction to this resolution, so it just has to deal with the city, county, health department, area department fees. So the base is going to be $435. The plus per lot is going to be $55. The maximum combined base fee per lot is going to be $1,500, and that's going to be both for the 2024 as well as the 2025 versions. And then I've prepared an Exhibit B, which is the one that you guys will sign as the resolution.
I'm seeing that the planning director and the health department staff are looking at each other with confused faces here.
Oh.
Sorry for a bit of confusion here. So the health department fee changes is also 3%, but it's only for 1 year, just for clarity. So the planning department is proposing the next 2 fiscal years.
Right.
Health department is for 1 year.
Right.
That was the difference. So the numbers on that, what I saw, were accurate with the correction. But it was just for the first year. Okay.
So we're good?
As long as that's what we're acting on.
Yeah, so whatever David Carey said, I'm going to have to get a different exhibit for you to sign at the next hearing.
But the fee schedule as it was presented in the public hearing is good.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm not going to vote in favor of this. This creates a new fee, a fee that has no equal in our government. If the planning commission makes a decision, the public, like the Ketterers, the Beaslings, and the Kohlers who are here today, should have the chance to appeal to us and come talk to us about it and not be charged for it. So I disagree with the idea that we should be charging people to speak publicly with us as elected officials because they disagree with what a lower commission has decided.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
No.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. 6H, a special designated license applications from Schroeder Operations LLC for a CAB Association reception event at Lintex Ranch on September 20th, 2024.
Person did supply a letter of, in support, and it's an event that has been happening. It was just previously in Gage County. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Please call the roll.
Vest.
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Schulte.
Yes.
Yocum.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. 6I, a special designated license application from Messiah Lutheran Foundation for a festival event just outside the Lincoln city limits at Messiah Lutheran Church on October 12th, 2024.
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? None. Please call the roll.
Yocum.
Yes.
Vest.
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Schulte.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. 6J, setting the salary of Deputy County Attorney Jennifer Crystal Clark in the amount of $107,253 as Attorney 2, effective on September 18th, 2024.
Move approval.
Wait, did you, hold on real quick. I think you said 170. Is it 170 or is it 107?
107.
100 and what?
7.
Okay, 107 is right. Okay, thanks. I will second it then.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to advise the board that this is consistent with other attorneys with her level of experience, and she does fit a need that we will need with Mr. Preble leaving our office. So.
Okay. Very good. And as a separate elected official, I think you're well within your rights to raise someone to this level, as I'll point out in future discussions, no doubt. So I'll be supportive of this motion.
I want to make a quick comment, though, that we have had several people with quite a bit of experience lately, and I think that speaks to our county, our public defender's office, as well as the county attorney's office, that people with this much experience want to be here. That's great.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, we have a motion, we have a second. Please call the roll.
Schulte.
Yes.
Yocum.
Yes.
Vest.
He just stepped out.
Amundson.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. Brings us to item 6K. It's the following series of recommendations from the Personnel Policy Board. 1, the request to create the following classifications: a sheriff's business manager, a public information officer, and a reentry specialist. 2, the request to change the pay grade of the classification of record system supervisor. 3, the request to revise the classification of corrections specialist 1. 4, the request to revise and change the title classification of community corrections caseworker to community corrections case manager. 5, a request to amend County Rule 17.27, hiring or retention incentive. 6, a request to create the County Human Resources Policy Bulletin for background investigation policy. 7, a request to create the County Human Resources Policy Bulletin for children in the workplace. 8, a request to create the County Parental Supervision Waiver and Approval Request. And 9, a request to amend the County Human Resources Policy Bulletin for breastfeeding policy.
Hi, Ben Houchin, Chief Deputy, Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. I'm just here if you had any more questions on our portions of it. I know we talked about it during the budgeting. It's gone to the Personnel Board. So I just wanted to make sure if you had anything or any concerns that I was here to answer any of those on my parts.
Oh, I think we've discussed it. Do we have a motion?
I move approval.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the recommendations of the Personnel Policy Board. Is there any further discussion?
I just comment on the children in the workplace policy. It's creates a space if someone needs to bring a child real quickly to accomplish something, but makes it clear that this is not a daycare center. So I feel like that's a very good addition to our policies.
Sure. Okay. Hearing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Amundson.
Yes.
Schulte.
Yes.
Yocum.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. Brings us to item 7, public comment. Members of the public wishing to speak in items related to county business not on the agenda may do so at this time.
Are there any members of the public wishing to speak?
We still need to sign in.
Yeah.
Need to sign in.
The public hearing for before is different than the public comment.
Okay. My name's Dwayne Rauscher. I just wanted to come and just see how things are going as far as the election integrity and the things that we're trying to accomplish, to see what's actually going on behind the scenes with our voter rolls, with our machines. Are we making any progress? Are things coming around? Are we getting more data?
You're asking this board, so in public comment, it's sort of the whole point of public comment is to give the opportunity for the public to have a chance to speak to the board and to speak to the public at large. It's not a dialogue, and so the board isn't going to answer questions specifically. If you want to talk with board members after the fact, maybe some people would be willing to meet with you afterwards.
Okay, yeah. Because my concern is that there's really no action taking place by the board. Because you guys are working with the election division, and I saw you put up cameras now. Going to go with the libraries at no cost to the county. So who's actually paying for this? And then who's monitoring the filming that's taking place? What's actually going on? Was it just to protect, make sure nobody steals the box, or are we concerned about invalid people putting their votes in the box? So how far do we go with this? Are you guys concerned at all about it? I think we should be concerned about what's going on. I think those drop boxes should be eliminated. I don't think that should be part of the process. But it kind of bothers me. We just accept this type of activity, putting cameras up, but yet we really don't know what's going on. Where are we going to get the answers?
Okay, thank you.
Robert Bohr. The answer to the aforementioned questions is no to all of the above. Secret software, secret hardware, secret vote count, secret voter rolls. From the Proverbs of Solomon, pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Government has proudly and arrogantly corrupted and enriched itself at all levels. We no longer have consent of the governed, but rather consent of government. What government proudly and self-servingly calls consent is just a show. Evil has permeated this land in large part because of you. You have sold the people's consent down the river to private interests. There can be no debate over transparency in elections. I'll say that again. There can be no debate over transparency in elections. Anyone who sides with secrecy in elections automatically exposes his or herself as a tyrant. Perilous times are approaching because government is in open warfare against natural law and the Creator himself. When the rule of lawlessness betrays the Constitution and divine morality, defiance becomes duty. Quoting from a letter by Thomas Jefferson, "What country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance?" Now, I would modify that statement by the Honorable Thomas Jefferson with this: what country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not reminded from time to time that they are not in fact rulers but public servants, and that the people reserve the right of resistance? Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and a host of others readily embraced the statement, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. Perilous times.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none, proceed to announcements.
Announcements. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will hold a special staff meeting on Tuesday, September 10th, 2024, immediately following the regular board meeting in room 112 of the County City Building. Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will attend a legislative retreat on Thursday, September 12th, 2024 at 8 a.m. in room 113 of the County City Building. Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will hold its next regular meeting on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024 at 9 a.m. with the Board of Equalization immediately following in room 112 of the County City Building. County Commissioners can be reached at 402-441-7447 or commish@lancaster.ne.gov. Lancaster County Board of Commissioners meeting is broadcast live on LNK TV. LNK TV is available on Allo Channel 2 and Spectrum Channel 1300. For the rebroadcast schedule, visit lincoln.ne.gov. Meetings are also streamed live on YouTube and Facebook. LNK TV apps are available in Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Item 9 is adjournment.
I have a quick amendment to that, or a quick notation, I guess, to that announcement. The staff meeting will be held in room 113, not 112, immediately following this meeting, straight through the doors in the back of the room.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundsen,
Yes.
Schulte.
Yes.
Yes,
Motion carries.
we are adjourned.
All right.